Hi guys, welcome back to another video on the Dread Paints YouTube channel. And today what I've got for you is a video showing you how I like to paint my Skaven Clanrats. I like to do them with contrast paints, but I don't like to sort of just leave them messy. I like to tidy them up a little bit with some highlights, just to make it look like there's been a bit of effort put in, even though in reality there's not really that much effort. But I think they turn out quite well. I think they look good on the battlefield, so let's dive in and take a look how I do it. So the first colour that you're going to need is Apothecary White contrast paint, and I like to slap a good coat of this all over the bottom of the tunic, the skirt, or whatever it is that the particular rat's wearing that you're painting. And I do this across the whole army, not just the Clanrats. I like to give a bit of unity and paint all the skirts, all the tunics, the bottom half Apothecary White. Gives a nice sort of off-white shade. Next up, I like to take a bit of Guilliman flesh and slap that all over the skin, the light parts of the skin, not the fur. And yeah, there's not really a lot to say about that. I just slap a good coat of that on, and it dries quite nicely. So we've got Gore-grunter fur up next, and that's for all the fur parts, unsurprisingly. Again, not a lot to this really, just try and keep it relatively neat. Try not to miss anything, because that seems to be the bane of my life with contrast paints, is sometimes it doesn't quite run into one of the recesses, so it leaves a little bit of white showing, and then you've got to go in and tidy all that sort of stuff up at the end. Yeah, so basically I've done his legs, tops of his legs, his arms, and the fur part of his face all around his hat and his ears, and a little bit applied around the eye recess as well to give some shade in there for later on when we do the eyes. Next up, some Carroburg Crimson, which I like to use on the tail as like a first coat. And I find if I just use this on its own, it's quite a pinkish tone. Maybe a little bit too pink for what I want. I do like it quite cartoony and bright, but that pink is even maybe a little bit too bright even for me. So later on I will dull that down a little bit. But for now, yeah, we give it a good coat, make sure it gets in all the recesses. So I took some orc flesh next, not your usual tunic colour, I would imagine, but because it's a flesh tone, it does seem to sit in the recesses really nice and give some good definition. It's one of the good contrast paints, definitely, and I prefer it to the other similar tones that are in the contrast range. Of all the greens, this is probably one of my favourites. So top half of the tunic, all painted green. Yeah, looks fine, nothing special just yet. I tend to find that with contrast paints that it always looks a little bit messy right until the last colour is filled in, and then it all seems to sort of come together. Even if it is messy, it's sort of, your eyes detract from it because it's a completed miniature, I guess. I don't know, maybe that's just me. So next up, I'm just going to take some black, any black will do, and just undercoat all the parts that are going to be metal, silver or gold. It just gives a nice base. You don't have to use contrast paint for that, but I like to use the contrast paint because it's just like ready thinned paint basically, and it flows nicely. It's not gonna sort of leave any brush marks or anything like that if you use contrast paint, so that's why I prefer it. Now I'm just going to tidy up with a little bit of white scar, just in the places where I've got a bit overzealous with the other contrast paints. Mainly just his necklace and his like Skaven icon hanging from his necklace, I think. A little bit on his skirt there as well. A few edges that just needed tidying up.
Once upon a time I was more fun. Can you hang around till
Cygor Brown next, and I like to use this to as an initial shade for all the teeth, nails, claws, even horns if there's anything with horns on. Anything that's going to be bone coloured, I generally like to use Cygor Brown as my base for that. So I think I've done his mouth there just to give a little bit more shading. Snakebite leather, and I'm going to use this to do the belt that runs around the middle. I think that's probably it on this one. Oh, his necklace as well, yeah. Oh, he's got a, yeah, like a knapsack. I don't know what you call it, like a bag hanging on his belt. So I've done that. Snakebite leather as well. I tend to find when I'm painting miniatures, I like to have sort of 1 or 2 pops of colour, but you've got to try and use neutral colours for the rest of the miniature to balance it out. If you put every bright colour on your miniature, it's just going to look like a clown and not very good, so you've got to get the balance right when you're picking your colours. Next I'm using some Blood Angels Red as my base coat for the Skaven icon hanging on his necklace. Across the whole army I've used Blood Angels Red as like my accent colour, so any sort of trinkets or little bits and bobs that I can't find another colour for, they tend to just go red. I think that's a very 90s thing as well, you know, everything, the red era as they called it, everything just gets painted red. And I like that, that's what I grew up with, so it's kind of instilled into me. Thanks for that, Mike McVeigh. There's Andrew Dust, so I'm using this to paint the nails that I did Cygor Brown earlier and the teeth. I'll give quite a chunky highlight to this, just leaving the recesses really dark brown. And as you can probably tell, trying to do this on camera is incredibly hard. You don't have to be perfect here, these are just rank and file troops, so you know, no one's really going to be taking notice of the claws, especially in a unit of 30 or 40 of them. So I'm not too concerned about being really neat and tidy, just as neat as possible without spending hours and hours going back and forth tidying stuff up. So I take the gold next. Retributor armour is my preferred gold. I just do the handle of the sword, and I think I'll do his wristbands as well. A few details on his sword that I'm picking out in gold as well, so I do those. Onto the silver, and we've got Ironbreaker next. I don't always use Ironbreaker as my dry brushing silver of choice, but it's a mid-tone, so it's good enough. It's normally either this or the darker one. Can't remember what it's called now. It'll come back to me. So, quick dry brush. You don't have to dry brush this bit, you can just paint it on and then add a few highlights later, but I find dry brushing it gives you some automatic highlights on the weapon, just catches the edges a little bit better, and there's nothing too close by that I'm going to catch with a silver that's going to cause me a problem with dry brushing, so why not? If it makes the job easier, I'm all for it. The Screaming Skull next, and I'm going to pick out all the bits that we did in Xandri Dust before, just a little bit of a finer highlight, just on the tips of the claws, nails. Try and pick out a few teeth in the deepest recess of his mouth there. Not really using the right brush for this, but I'm making do. Like I say, rank and file troops, you tend to do a lot of that. Making do, Sometimes I even leave little mistakes on there in the hope that no one will notice because, well, it gives them character, doesn't it? So Cadian flesh tone I've got here, and I'm just tidying up any bits of the skin tone that I've got other colours on or just gone a bit overboard. Maybe I'm adding a few highlights here as well, the darker parts. So like his lips there, where I've caught it a little bit doing the teeth, I've probably caught a little bit on the lips just of Screaming Skull there, so if you just give a quick Cadian flesh tone over the lips, then that darkens them back down. Blends in quite nicely and you won't ever tell. Reichland flesh shade. So now I'm going to dampen down that tail brightness a little bit. This is my preferred shade for that. I also like to use it on the golds as shading for the gold. And it gives like a nice deep red sort of richness to the gold. And same with the tail, it just gives it a bit more of a skin tone rather than a bright pink. I don't know if that's technically right for rats. I don't know what colour their tails should be in comparison to the rest of their body. Pretty sure it shouldn't be like that, but I think it looks good on the model, so this is fantasy after all. We can do whatever we like, can't we? So a bit of Screaming Skull, a bit of Skull White now to dot in the eyes. Now the key to doing the eyes really is to try and leave a little bit of the darker recess around the edge of the white sort of dot or line that you paint for the eyes. And if you can leave a dark edge around it, it's going to look 10 times better later on, because it's going to give it some depth and some recess shading, just to give it that nice 3D effect. So I've got Wild Rider Red here, and I'm just touching in some highlights on the pendant hanging from his necklace, just to make that pop a little bit. I always tend to try and highlight reds, just because even if you highlight nothing else on the model, if you just do the red, it tends to elevate it and doesn't look out of place. Even if it's the only thing highlighted, it always kind of looks good. To my eyes it does. And again, maybe that's my 90s upbringing, my Mike McVeigh influence. But I like it. I like to always highlight the reds, so they always look a bit flat if you don't. I'm going right up through the orange here into Troll Slayer. Is it Troll Slayer Orange or Fire Dragon Bright, one of them? Both will work equally well, it doesn't matter which of the oranges that you go to next on this. I'm just picking out the top edges there and the bottom edges. Bloodletter Glaze. Now this isn't made anymore, so I mean I don't know what I'm going to do when this runs out. I've got another pot, so it should last me a while. But I use this to dot in the eyes, just because it's such a nice watery consistency. Yeah, Bloodletter Glaze. I'm a big fan of this. If you don't use Bloodletter Glaze, I probably would use just Blood Angels Red and then highlight it up with orange, the same as what I do with the rest of the red. Just obviously a lot more work. And for this, rank and file troop, nah, I don't want to spend the time doing that really. So yeah, bloodletter straight in the hole, fill the recess up, and I'll dot the eyes in later.
With everything they say, and I got fed up with it all. Now the runways are deserted, all the planes have flown away.
So black Templar next, and I'm going to use this to dot the eyes in. Again, you can use any black for this, you don't have to use black Templar. I'll just use it because it's you know, the right consistency straight out the pot. And I'm using my finest detail brush here, which is a Army Painter Insane Detail brush. I'm going to put a little dot in the eye, in the top sort of left corner. You want to try and have it attached to one of the surfaces, so either the top of the eye or the bottom of the eye. Otherwise it's going to look like he's staring, and you don't really want or your army to look like they're staring. It just looks really weird and out of place. So if you can put the dot attached to the top of the eye, that looks best in my opinion. I've done my best to get all this on camera, but it's a new experience for me painting on camera, something that's not easy, and I'll keep practicing and hopefully get better at it. So it's coming together now, we're getting there, almost finished. So if you've enjoyed the video so far, don't forget to like and subscribe on the channel so that you can get all the latest updates and you can see the next video. Back to the iron breaker again. So I'm just going to add a few edge highlights with iron breaker now, even though I've dry brushed with it already. I tend to find that you can still highlight with the same colour when you're doing the edges, because it will still stand out, brighten everything up a little bit. So the edges of his hat, his earring, and the bands around the edge of his bracelet. A few rivets on the top of his hat that I'm picking out as well. And the ridges across the back of his hat.
You make the rushing wind sound yourself as you fly down Terrace Street, bringing joy to the people that you meet. You keep blowing in the
He's starting to look the part now, and I think it's the little details like doing the eyes on the rank and file troops that just set them apart a little bit from the standard. If you guys can let me know in the comments below what you've been painting, especially if it's rats, I'm definitely interested. Let me know. Anyone got a YouTube channel out there that's painting rats or anything to do with Skaven, let me know, drop the link. Nearly finished now, so last few touches and we'll be there. These guys will have shields as well. I've not included those in the video because at the time of recording this I've not done the shields, so. Okay, silver all done, and moving on to some gold highlights now. And I'm just going to use Retributor armor again, which is what I used to base coat all the gold parts, and then I washed it with the Reichland flesh shade to give it a reddish shading tone. So now I'm just bringing that goldness and that brightness back up with a couple of small dot and edge highlights.
It's another day, everything is okay. Now watch you turn to fly. Oh, wave of the hand goodbye. And now because of you,
Biodragon Bright is next, so this is going to be to do all the red bits again.
everything begins anew. Take me by the hand, help me out of this wreck, fill my heart with hope. Let me forget you come to save me. Take me by the hand, help me out of this wreck, fill my heart with hope. Let me forget you come to save me.
And that's the man all done. So here we are, the finished Skaven.
If you look too hard, I'm not there. I'm the magic I picture. The trick is to see straight through the image I'm portraying for you. It's a sleight of hand. It's something you can understand. It's the rabbit in the
And here's the finished model in his unit, and I think altogether ranked up they look brilliant. I love them. What do you think? Well, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll be back again soon with another update on the army video, so you can see how I've been getting on painting the rest of the troops. So for now, I'll leave it at that. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Thanks a lot for tuning in.